Good. Go live here. View request.
Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna mute my computer, I think. Hi, Natasha. Okay, and now waiting for Facebook. I think we must be live. Okay, Kate, you can hear me, right?
Yep.
Do you hear any feedback?
No,
Big
I
question.
think we're good today.
Okay, let me stop moving my computer around. And then if anybody is with us this morning, especially on Instagram, let us know if you are getting a lot of static, because we had some issues last time when we're trying to share our screens with each other. Natasha, can you give us a thumbs up?
I think we're okay on Instagram.
I think we're good. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I'm Dr. Sarah Herron of Aero Physical Therapy, and I'm here with Dr. Kate Blankshane of Rally Physical Therapy, and we are, oh good, no static here, and we are the co-instructors of the PT Practice Ownership Division of ICE, and our course, Out of Network Step by Step, starts today. So we want to talk about some of the reasons why people often don't get started in actually starting up their practice. So before we get started, we do want to recognize that there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today. Maybe a good workout would be in order for you. There's a great Gut Check Thursday up on our social medias and up on the website. And go ahead and check that out. Make sure that you post, tag ICE Physio, tag Gut Check Thursday, and get in participating with this community. This particular workout was designed by Alan in honor of one of his patients, and you can read about that online. All right, so let's get started. In our last podcast talk between Kate and I, we talked about burnout, and we talked about deciding if starting your own practice was the right choice for you. And if that would help alleviate that burnout. So even if you have decided that it's the next step for your future, which a lot of people get to that point, there are actually a lot of reasons why folks decide that they need to delay or they end up just never starting. Okay, so we're going to talk about 7 of the most common reasons that we hear regarding why people are hesitant to start their own practices. And then we're going to give a little bit of pushback as to why each of these ideas needs to be challenged. Okay, and then of course we talk about all of these in our course, which again starts today. So you can still sign up if you are interested. All right, so the first reason that we want to get into is that it's not the right time, right? So lots of people are going to say, well, it's just not the right time. Maybe it's because of COVID. Maybe you just bought a house. Maybe you just had a child. Maybe you haven't finished your manual therapy certification or whatever you've been working on. But the reality is it's never going to be the right time, right? So you're never going to feel 100% ready to jump into something like starting a business. That's how you're going to feel about a lot of big decisions in your life. And there really aren't any guarantees that it's going to be a success or that it's going to make your life better, right? You're always going to find reasons that it's not the right time. So one good example of this is that while a global pandemic is not a great time, we think, to start thinking about the risk of starting a business, it's not totally unreasonable either. Okay, so actually a lot of PTs were laid off, furloughed. Many people were asked to work in what they felt like were unsafe environments this last year, and that resulted in a lot of people leaving their jobs and starting their own practices anyway. So the pandemic actually has shown a lot of benefits of working for yourself. And that includes being able to treat the way that you want to. Maybe that's one-on-one with your patients at a lower volume, right? So we know that that's important when it comes to COVID. And also being able to set your own policies regarding mask wearing or having people not come in if they've been traveling, things that you get to be in control of. So again, to circle back, it's never going to be the right time. So Kate and I are going to toggle back and forth between these 7 different ideas. So you're up next.
Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is this idea that you don't have a network of patients already, or you're not established yet in your area. And this one I think comes from people really wanting a guarantee that when they start, they're going to have a caseload. And maybe not a full caseload. I think that expectation is too high, but I think people generally wait to think about starting their practice until they're like, I know I'm going to have these people follow me, or I know I'm going to have 8 patients in my first week. And really, if you're waiting for that to happen, you're probably not going to get started. So if you're looking for that guarantee and you're waiting for, like, I want a full caseload before I go and do this, and I want all these people to promise that they're going to follow me, you're going to be waiting so long that it doesn't actually happen. And some people do get some people to follow them, but often you'll even find that patients might say they're going to follow you and they don't. And especially if you're going from in-network to out-of-network, some of those expectations change and patients might stay where they are, even if you are the best provider for them. And at the same time, you might have a non-compete that means you can't bring patients with you, or for whatever reason, it's not going to work out. So if you can kind of let go of that reason of feeling like you need to have a full caseload before you start your practice, it opens you up to just being free to market a little bit more too, because some of that is like, you just need to get started before you can really market your practice. And even the marketing you're doing right now, where it might feel like you are selling yourself and you're working for another company, it's still going to feel different when you're actually marketing your own practice. And it's going to come off as a little bit more authentic, more genuine. You actually have a facility that you can send these people to right away. And you have more time to do that. So if you want to go to a consistent CrossFit class at 5 o'clock every day to get those referrals, you'll have that freedom in your schedule. So really the best way to guarantee your caseload is really to just get started and start with nothing. But you'll have the freedom to write blogs, you'll have the freedom to go to classes, you'll have the freedom to do workshops or do more marketing. And really just getting started is how you're going to start to do that marketing and get patients in the door.
Awesome. Okay, number 3, I don't think that people will be willing to pay, right? So this is kind of twofold. Is this a confidence issue, or is the market not ready to support cash practice in your area, right? So if it is a confidence or an experience issue, then we do need to think about, how do we learn to sell ourselves? How do we learn to advertise or network in a way that feels authentic to our clinic, and strategize about how to get those patients in our doors, right? And this can come down to practice specialty and feeling confident in our actual clinical skills. And this can come in the form of like feeling comfortable asking for money, right? It can be as simple as that. And those are things that we definitely hit on in our course quite a bit, because sometimes the market is perfectly ready and it's the individual that's really having a hard time like communicating that or feeling confident in themselves. But sometimes the market isn't there, right? So depending on your community, depending on the types of work that is done in your area, or maybe there's really good insurance in your area, whatever it is, you may find a lot of pushback to cash practice or even hybrid practice, right? Because people are they're gonna see that you don't take insurance and maybe just walk away, right? But you can find an insurance contract that works for you. And this is something that Kate does in her clinic, where because they take an insurance contract, there's a little bit less of a barrier, and then that reputation gets built, and then maybe that doesn't even become an issue, right? So perhaps somebody knows that you take insurance, but doesn't realize that that you don't take their insurance, and then it just isn't a big deal because their friend was like, oh yeah, you need to go see Kate anyway, right? So there's lots of scenarios where this can be more useful. And again, I think we get caught up on people may not be willing to pay, but it's really about what are you offering them, and how can you communicate that with them? So in order to fully kind of gain that reputation, don't write insurance off as an option for yourself. Think about what a good insurance contract could look like in your area. All right, back to you.
So the next one is I don't have enough money saved and I'm afraid to quit my job. And I think there are two big components to this one, where it's being afraid to give up your full-time salary. And it's also feeling like you need to have a lot of money saved to put into your business when you get started. So I'll start with the salary, because I think a lot of times people are afraid to give up that steady income. And not everyone has to do that. So this is where that kind of side hustle comes into play. So you don't need to fully quit your full-time job to start something on the side. And often this depends on where you work. If you work in an outpatient ortho setting already that's nearby, that might be a little bit trickier. But for many people, you can keep your full-time job, you can start to see patients on the side, or you could always pick up PRN work too. So if you quit your full-time job, you could work in home health, you could work in an acute care setting, but you can always get that extra income on the side to make sure you don't need to actually replace your full-time salary right away. And then the other piece of this, I think, is people feeling like they don't have enough money saved to start their practice. And I think some of this comes from this misconception that we might even get as far back as when you were in PT school. Some of us did a project, I know we did this project, where you have a budget and you come up with your own PT clinic, and it's kind of your dream clinic, and you set everything up right away. And I think when I did mine, we had a budget of like $150,000 that we got a loan for, and we got all the equipment we wanted. We had PTs hired right away. We had a front desk staff. We lined everything up. So I think often many people think of that kind of traditional insurance-based model where you're starting with a full staff, you're starting with your own brick and mortar space, you feel like you need to take out a loan, but really that is not the case. And we definitely encourage people in our class to start as small as you possibly can. So without putting a lot of money into overhead, maybe you don't even have your own physical location to start out, you're just subleasing from someone else. You don't have all the equipment you could possibly want, you just start with the necessities, and then you kind of build from there. So I think if you can kind of let go of those two ideas, like I need to replace my full-time salary right away with this new clinic, and you are comfortable with the idea of just starting really small and minimizing your overhead, those ideas can be a little bit less overwhelming and less of a barrier to start up.
Yep. Okay, number 5, it seems complicated and I don't know how to get started. So many people, including myself, literally just Googled how to start a physical therapy business. I actually typed in how to start a business, right? Because I had no idea what to do. And this is really why we created the course, the step-by-step course, because we wanted to streamline this process for people. It is quite overwhelming when you type in something like that because there's a lot of things to do. But actually it doesn't need to be that overwhelming, right? So if you can find all of that information in a course or in a handout, that can be really helpful. And you just need to remind yourself, like, it is just stuff that we don't normally do as PTs. So it feels overwhelming, but it's just business stuff. Every business owner can do it. But sometimes what people actually are getting stuck on are the little details. So just like Kate said, like, we can get overwhelmed by thinking that it needs to look a certain way, or our practice needs to feel like these big practices that we're used to. We can get stuck on things like logo design or coming up with a name, right? Making perfect social media posts, and all these things are actually secondary, right? At some point, we just need to go for it, and we just need to learn as we go, like we've said. So we can't let little details get in our way, especially something that we can change later. So you can always change your logo later. You can actually change your name later, right? So it doesn't need to be something that kind of keeps you from getting started.
Okay. And then the next one is that I'm not clinically skilled enough to practice solo, or I don't have enough experience in the clinic. And we get a big mix of people in our classes. Some people who have been practicing for 10 to 15 years, and they are more concerned about the business side of it. And then we have other people who are new grads who are looking to start their own practice. And we generally encourage everyone to go for it. So even if you are a new grad or you are kind of new to PT in general, there are ways to work on your clinical skills, taking continuing education classes, maybe having a clinical mentor, or even going into business with someone else who has a little more clinical experience. But there are always ways to work on that. And I would recommend having some experience going in. I think it would be really tough to literally leave PT school and then start practicing on your own unless you have a lot of mentorship. But for some people, like myself, I just started out, I opened Rally about a year and a half after I graduated PT school. So I had about a year of experience in a really high volume ortho clinic, and that was enough for me. I felt like I saw a lot of different diagnoses. I was ready to get out of there. So I had that experience and that mentoring right away. But by that point, I was ready to go. I was ready to start my own practice, and I have just taken continuing education. I now have an employee who has more experience than I do clinically, and we work together. So there are always ways to improve your clinical skills if that's what you're worried about. And actually, I think we probably see more people who are nervous about starting their practice who have a lot of experience. I think we see people who have 10, 15 years of experience who are more concerned about starting their practice than some people who are only a couple years out. And I think some of that is kind of that whole, like, you don't know what you don't know. But even if you are only a year or two out, you can always get more clinical skills. You know the basics to start treating people, especially in the patient population that you really want to see. So you have that benefit of working for yourself where you can really target the patient population that you are most comfortable with and that you feel the most skilled with. So you don't have to take on everyone. You don't have to know how to treat every diagnosis, but you can kind of cater to those patients that you feel most confident with.
Yeah. Okay. The final one is, I'm afraid I will fail. And just to circle back to number 6, what Kate just talked about, I was 9 years out of school before I started my own practice. And I think a big factor for me was this, I'm afraid I'm going to fail thing, more than the mentorship. And I think also there just wasn't a lot of like new small practice models out there for me to kind of compare to. So this idea of I'm afraid to fail became really clear to me because it was a big risk, right? I'm like very like do things by the book, follow the rules, get like recognition for that, and do it the right way. And so if you take a risk to start your own business and it doesn't go well, or inevitably you're gonna make mistakes and certain things aren't gonna go your way, that is really vulnerable for people, and especially for folks who don't like to put themselves in those positions. So the risk of failure is there. Just kind of need to know that, and it's going to continue to be there as long as you're a practice owner. But with the right strategies and mindset and support, right, these failures, these inevitable mistakes become opportunities to learn and to pivot and to grow, right? And to make sure that your practice is going in the direction that you want it to, or to change as you need. So accepting failure, learning from failure, right, and going into practice ownership knowing that that is probably going to happen is going to actually set you up for success. If you go in feeling like everything needs to be perfect and you're never going to get started if it's not going to like happen, then you're just never going to get started, right? And you're going to be stuck in that high volume clinic more than a year and a half later, and you're going to be frustrated, right? So being okay with failure is really kind of the key to this I'm afraid to fail, right? You need to know that that will happen so that you can prepare for it, and then your business will be successful. So we hope that these topics have been helpful. We'd love to hear in the comments if there's anything else that you personally are feeling held back by. And we'd love to see you in our course so we can workshop through some of this stuff and get you on your road to practice ownership. Anything more from you, Kate?
No, covers it.
Okay, we'll have a great Thursday, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Okay, let's do, I need to end live.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.